Good morning. All right. Looks like everybody's working. We are ready to roll this morning. So I am Peter SAKIEVICH, if you're not familiar with me, and I'm an arts educator at the university and artist. And in the morning, I like to get up and spend an hour or so working on something new in terms of my skills. So I've been working a lot with Blender this summer and before, but really this summer a lot doing certain specific things, and lately been jumping into the sculpting. So I am sculpting a bust of a horned lizard, and so this is a lizard from the Southwest United States, mostly, so Arizona, New Mexico. It might be in Mexico as well, I'm not sure, but they look kind of like that. Body's about the size of my palm, a little bit smaller depending on the species. And then they have this unique skill when they feel threatened. They will shoot blood out of their eyes at you. So worse than a camel or a llama that will just spit. They'll shoot blood at you. Good morning. Over there, Ian. Yeah, so this is my horned lizard, or horny toad. It's also another name for them. So mostly working. I need to clean up these neck flaps. I think I need to simplify it down a bit more. And then I've got some stamps for the scales put on there. And then I like to do the simple Q remesh thing it's got in here to remesh it and then project the details onto a cleaned up mesh. So right now it looks like, so you can put the mesh on, and it looks like that. So I think I'm getting close to enough. If I get the remeshing done properly, maybe even I'll UV it and try the Uku paint thing or ECU paint texture tool, just because I'd like to use that as well. So, but that's where we are at with this so far. This is how I can go up with it. In the morning, I spent about an hour, hour and a half on it the first thing in the morning. So it's not like I've been on this all day long constantly. It's just when I get up, get the dog out for his W. Usually a little bit of reading in the morning, and then get cleaned up and jump into this. So the blender, so it's like the remesh. Is that what you mean? So I think they got a couple options in here. So if we were to let's look at this little guy right here. So if we were to look at his mesh right there, all right, it's pretty nasty looking. Yeah, I love spell check these days, right? I feel like spell check has gotten worse. Like I'll type something and it will type something entirely different sometimes. But there's a couple options. One, there's this thing called Q Remeshify, which is a free add-on that you can install, and it has some settings and things if the default one doesn't work. If I go into object mode, no, I think it's in scope. So I don't know if you can see it over there, but this over briefly. Go back into the same. On the Instagram screen. So we come down over to sculpt mode. Got this form right here selected. And let's see if I can bring it back into. I guess it's in sculpt mode, so you can't see it there. I've got that horn selected. And over here, there's this remesh option. One is voxel, which you can do by default, and the other one is quad. And that one, that's like their default one. It does run into problems sometimes if I've noticed a little bit that I've used it, that it will, if there's any kind of like odd mesh issues, so if it's, something is overlapping or there's something weird in the mesh, it will break. It won't do its thing. It's called quadro flow remesh, and it turns things into quads. There's no real controls on here either, so so that's why I don't like that one as much. But there is that, it does work, but there's that free add-on, that Q Remeshify one, which I think you have the object mode is, there's right there, Q Remeshify. And this one, it gives you options on the density. You can do symmetry, so it'll slice your model in half and create a mirror version of it. Detect sharp angles. I think it's got some stuff in here on. Some stuff here in what's it called, the adapted sizing. Let's see it at the moment. Maybe it's open here somewhere. Has some different, I guess, calculations it'll run, but. And it's free, so there are ones that you can pay for too, like Quad Remesher is one. Quad Remesher is done by the same guy that did the ZBrush one. But yeah, if I go ahead and hit, save this before I do anything, Q Remeshify and hit Remesh, it'll think about it, so it's thinking about it, and boom. You can kind of see what it was and now what it is, and then I can, the larger the number on the density, the fewer the rectangles. So it's pretty clean. It's a little messy right there, but it's not bad for being free. I have ZBrush. I've used ZBrush quite a bit, off and on, but trying to kind of move off of that kind of software, even though I actually get it for free. So at the university I teach at, I can get all that, pretty much all the software I want for free. I've been trying to move into either software you pay for once or software that is free. So, so I can kind of bring that to my students. I don't like a lot of trends in software. I'd rather just pay for stuff and have it. I find the whole software as a service to not be as beneficial as promised. They were like, oh yeah, we'll have all these updates and we'll help fund things, and we'll make the software better over time. And I haven't really seen that to be the case. Like, I know they've been updating ZBrush, but it doesn't really look like anything, that justifies the expense. And I found this the Google Tools. I guess they've updated. Or even look at what's going on with Adobe, right? So Adobe, they switched to subscription model a long time ago, and I actually have my own personal account that I was using with them, but as it's gone on, like I've noticed it's just really bloated. Like as an example, let's see, was it settings? And that was programs or something like that. Systems, what was it? It was like storage. Storage install apps. So I've been using Affinity a lot, which is free. I paid for the version 2, but they've recently put out version 3 for free, and what they want you to do, they got acquired by Canva, which is a design company that's rivaling Adobe in a lot of ways. A lot of small businesses use it, but it's also big on the whole AI thing. So disappointed by that, but Affinity basically combines Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign into one single application, and have like different workspaces where the different tools kind of reside. But you can do all three of those things. All those publishing software tools kind of exist in one application, and it's free. So they want you to get a Canva subscription, but you don't have to. It's in fact, there's a Canva workspace for Canva AI, and you can just get rid of that. So I do appreciate that they've done that, but it's still don't like it. But as you look over here, the size of Affinity on my hard drive is 1.46 gigabytes. Now you compare that to, say, Adobe Photoshop, all by itself, 5.27 gigabytes. Adobe Acrobat is 3.65 gigabytes all by itself. I don't have InDesign on here anymore. I think I got Illustrator off of here as well, but they are both also, significantly larger than Affinity is all by itself. So I think I want to say Illustrator is like 4 or 5 gigabytes, and InDesign was something like that too. So here's my last update to the paid version of ZBrush. I still have that. So I look at that and I'm like 1.46 gigabytes, and they have iPad versions from version 2, and they're still free. You can get them for free. I bought them a long time ago on my iPad as well. They're free now. And supposedly they're bringing Affinity version 3 to the iPad for free as well. So, and what's nice about their iPad app is it works exactly the same as the desktop. It has all the exact same tools. So, yeah, you just look at that. Photoshop, 5.27 gigabytes. Why? Affinity, 1.46. And I don't think there's really, I've heard some people they don't like Affinity as much because it's missing some kind of workflow aspect, but for myself, I don't see anything really there that's missing, and that I feel like I'm missing out on as a result of using it. But maybe there's some kind of specialized thing it does. Yeah, but it's nice. It's like it's 100% free. There's no subscription. You do have to have a Canva account, but you just make a free Canva account so you can log in. And you can import your Photoshop brushes in there. You might have to go fix up the settings in them. I think it doesn't always transfer all the settings over correctly. So if you've got like specialized brushes you're using in there, then that can be an issue. But yeah, I think it's great because it's like, I've always wondered why Adobe didn't merge, at least Photoshop and Illustrator together. I know they both have like other things they've been doing with them, but supposedly we were supposed to get a total rewrite of Photoshop from the one they were building on the iPad. They were going to fill that one up with features and then bring it to the desktop. And then ever since they went down their AI route a couple years ago, they basically haven't done any of that. Which, disappoints me. This is the face that I make right here when I look at that. So yeah, that's always recommend. I've been trying to move off of a lot of the plugins in Blender as well. Like I use a lot of the quick tools from Jama Jurabayev. He has a guy named Alexander that makes them. And that guy kind of went full AI over the last couple of years as well. As far as I can tell, all he does is make plugins. Like it's not, doesn't do a lot of art stuff as far as I can tell. the guy who makes the plugin. So I'm also just trying to clean up the folds on his neck. So the folds are tricky. I haven't done animal sculpts in a long time. I did a number a few years ago. Well, I guess a long time ago now. And so I wanted to kind of get into this aspect of Blender, so I can dive into this. Earlier in the summer, I kind of paused on the live streams I was doing, kind of looking into the material nodes a bit, and memorizing some simple layouts with those. I should probably go back and review those before I forget some of the particular aspects. But, so my dog needs a bath today. I think he picked up a friend. Chomp at him. So yeah, and then, the other thing I'm also using on here, I don't see if I delete that window. No, I didn't. So the other thing I've been using is settings. Is DaVinci Resolve. Haven't fully switched over to that one yet. I was finishing up a course for my teaching site, so I still need to use Adobe Premiere for that, just because that's what I've been using for all the other videos in that series. So I thought it would just be simpler to kind of do that with it, and I can get that off my computer, so I just need to verify some things. But another one to check out, if you haven't checked it out, is DaVinci Resolve. So again, Adobe Premiere Pro, this is from, I guess a year ago version. I haven't updated it properly, I guess. 13.2 gigabytes on my hard drive, right? Well, it sounds reasonable for like a video editing app, right? Pretty heavy duty thing to do compared to like editing photos. But DaVinci Resolve, less than 5 gigs, and it's free. There's a free version. I guess the paid one you get some extra things in it, but there's nothing really in the paid version that I need. And they also have like added AI stuff into their thing as well. But you only get access to that if you pay for it. So I think it's just I don't know how well that works, but they make most of their money selling equipment. So it's from Blackmagic, and they sell a lot of video and audio equipment. Yeah, I think the hard one to replace is After Effects. I'm not a graphic designer or motion designer, but I know Canva, they bought a program called Calvary recently, and that's a motion design app. It's not an effects, it's a compositing program like the After Effects is, but it does like a lot of design stuff that you would do in After Effects. DaVinci Resolve, they have a new photo editing mode in there, which is basically a Lightroom replacement. So I haven't tried it yet, but basically you can drop photos in there and do all the kinds of editing you would do in Adobe Lightroom inside DaVinci Resolve, which is also really nice. Yeah, I've heard about the video editor in Blender. I haven't tried it yet. Again, I with 3D stuff, I consider myself to be a 3D fan, not an expert. I like working with it, but I just know that it would require, to like get really good with it, it would require a certain kind of investment into it. To do like, say, I want to get into effects and editing, animation, freaking, and I'm really more interested in it as a reference and kind of concepting tool. But yeah, I've been hearing a lot of, I've been paying attention to their updates as well. Quite a bit, obviously, so. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, and this would be nice if these other programs weren't so terrible. I wish Adobe were a better company. chosen their villain route. Their stock is up recently over last week. I think some people figured out that AI is not going to replace all software. You would be able to say, type in your computer and say, hey, turn, give me a image editing app that I can use this morning. Turns out that's a completely ridiculous question. So, I'm trying to do is sculpt this. I think I was trying to overdo it with the fold here. This is going to pull forward a bit. First in. So it just looks like the fold. I don't need to actually function. That's what I was thinking about when I was finishing it last time. Was that particular aspect. But it's definitely a lot of interesting stuff going on with software. I know there are some programs that are supposed to do something similar to After Effects, but I just don't know how good they are. Again, I'm not a compositor, so or motion designer, so I'm not qualified to speak on those. Well, that's good. I know, like there's the Nightshade and so the two things you work together, Nightshade and laptop. I had kind of both on my computer. They actually take quite a bit of hard drive space. You probably know off the top of your head, Nightshade and the other one. But we'll get you taken care of today, Bosch, for lunch. It's nice and warm up, sunny out there. And the dog started chomping on himself last night quite a bit. So it's like, oh, this is a flea bath. But yeah, I think the poisoning thing can be helpful. I've heard of authors actually that trying to put that in their books, like the published books, to some degree. I was reading something somewhere about that recently. So, yeah, it's a lot of bizarre stuff. I don't, I understand people trying to cut people out of their process. Like as an independent-minded person, I get that, but it just seems like with AI, you're just creating a different kind of dependency. It's like I like doing things by myself and making things work and all that. And I can get. I understand people who think that way. Um, yeah, if you do, yeah, send that to me. I'll definitely take a look at it. It'd be nice if there was like a video version of that stuff. I can't remember the name of the other ones. Nightshade and yeah, whatever. They each take like 5 or 6 gigs of data because basically it's running an AI process on top of your work, and in order to kind of embed imagery inside of it. One of which kind of deceives what your output is, so it makes it difficult to train on it, and the other one actually poisons the systems. I haven't heard that much about them recently. I know that what's it, IMAG or IMAG, the kind of an illustration concept art site. They've got some kind of system that they built for their website. which I haven't looked at much. I haven't thought as much about the poisoning of the data as much, just because I figure I'm not sure how much can be done really that will make a difference. Because I think I look at these systems and I kind of look at them and say, well, they're kind of bloated all by themselves. Like they don't make money. Like none of them do. Like no one is making a profit. I always thought that was funny. Like Bernie Sanders going around saying, "Yeah, we gotta tax their, put a fine or a tax or a fee or whatever on their stuff and pay that back with all their profits back to the American people." So you want to socialize their system to some degree to give government ownership, and therefore government will be obligated to support them once they run out of money, because they don't make any money like at all. Like they're terrible. Like there's no profit in generative AI, unless you're NVIDIA. Um, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, like they're all losing a lot of money on their investment spends, and there's no path for profitability at all. Like, I don't. I think they're just hoping something will work out, or they're hoping to get their bag and then crawl into their bunker. I don't know. The end game to me, I just don't understand. My brain isn't big enough to understand what their ultimate end game is, because it doesn't seem like it's gonna, like the math doesn't really work very well. Oh, thanks, Dan. It's like, I would be interested in AI if I saw that it would actually, was helpful. That it would improve me, not make me look better, but actually improve me. Like if people talk about, well, you can use it to study a language or a subject matter or something like that. But we're not really seeing that either, because it hallucinates what it does. So it doesn't, you can't rely on any of the information it provides you. I accidentally used Google's Gemini thing in a search. I don't really use Google anymore, especially after what happened. And then their shift to the AI summaries as being the priority. So I'm over on DuckDuckGo with AI turned off. But I find it to be perfectly fine. That's the Google. But yeah, a friend of mine, he sent this image to me of a painting that his grandmother had, and he wanted to know what I thought of it. It's a small painting. She picked it up from, I guess, a visit to New York when she was much younger, back in the '60s or something like that. And he wanted to know, what I thought of it. And I was like, it's a little tourist kind of reproduction style of an old master painting. Nothing, really, really small, like that big, actual size. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do a Google image search. Maybe, it'll bring up something else by this artist or whatever. And so I just drop it into Google on my phone, and it immediately does this like Gemini analysis on it. And everything it tells me about the painting is wrong. So it tells me, because I can read and speak Russian, not the greatest at it or anything, but I'm pretty fluent. And so I can see the signature on it is Russian. I can read it mostly. It's small and it's a little grainy, and so and of course it's Russian script, and so it's hard to read Russian handwriting, the cursive, especially at that level of size and resolution. But I can read most of the name. The ending's a little hard because it turns into a lot of loops. So I know it's Russian, and I know when it was painted approximately, and when it was purchased, and all of that. Anyway, Google tells me that this is a painting from the Circle of Rembrandt in the early 1600s, or the mid 1600s, from the Circle of Rembrandt. And because all this stuff about it, and I'm just like, none of this is real. Like, why? How, if I were not someone who understood oil painting and art history and specifically the techniques of Rembrandt, like I've actually copied Rembrandts in a museum before, and so like I'm intimately familiar with Rembrandt. Like I've got books that collect, have information on the what's it called, the X-rays of his paintings and material, like chemical analyses of it. Like, he's a painter I'm pretty familiar with, and this was definitely not any of those things. Like, it's a little tourist painting that his grandma bought in New York in the 60s or whatever. It's not worth anything. It's just a little touristy thing, but it was just like I was just quite shocked about how bad it was. Like, none of that was true, like, at all. And that's been the case, pretty much every time. I remember early on, before they really implemented all the overview stuff, I was looking for, there's a shortcut in Photoshop where you can merge all of your layers without getting rid of them. So it'll create a new layer on top of your layers that's a merged version of your layers. And I know there's a short, I think it's like Control Shift E instead of Control E, I think, off the top of my head. But I was just looking it up on, did a little Google search just to remind myself what it was, and it just told me the other one. Not the correct one that I was looking for. So, yeah. So, but in terms of like the taxes and thing, I don't know if that'll be necessary. I think part of what's going on too is that people are not paying the actual cost of the training or the inference or the infrastructure. So the end customers are being heavily subsidized by investor capital. So people are investing in these AI companies, whether they know it or not, right? So like, your grandma's investing in it, or your parents are investing in it with their retirement funds, and this is part of a larger retirement account. Anyway, all of that's being used to subsidize the people using the systems. So basically like a $200 a month, I think, Anthropic, what I've read or seen, it's like a $200 a month Anthropic subscription is getting you about $8,000 worth of services from Anthropic, which that doesn't sound very like a sustainable, real business to me. That sounds like a problem about to happen in a pretty big way. And I think they saw some recent stuff where the AI companies were starting to charge per token processed, and people were shocked by how much it cost. Because they were still subsidized. Like, they still weren't paying the full amount for the inference. And some of these companies, they've kind of backed off on that to some degree in terms of charging their customers. But Because it's like, they're spending all this money for, a slot machine result. So it might work, it might be effective, it might give them the results that they need, it might not, and they still have to pay the same whether it works or not. Well, if you're working with a human being, right, you get a contract with an artist or a programmer or whatever, copywriter, and they send you bad work, that doesn't function, you don't pay for it. But with generative AI, you do, whether it works or not. It's unreliable slot machine. Not only is it a slot machine, but it's a slot machine. I mean, you're probably all well aware of this, but in case anybody else is listening. I do know with younger kids, there's been kind of a lot of pushback against it. So the art department that I teach in at my university, most of the professors, I was quite shocked to discover when I moved up here, are for using AI. I'm one of the few vocal voices in the department that says, "Hey, we shouldn't be doing this." Hopefully, that won't cause me problems in the long term, but I could definitely see it being a problem because it's a problem. I think some of them assumed that I would support it, which is bizarre. I don't know why they would. Yeah, the thing is, like the art part too is like usually it's the least expensive part. Your photographer for your ad campaign is going to be cheaper than paying for the ads on Facebook or whatever. Putting it in a magazine. Like that's going to be the least. It's like they're targeting the least expensive part in order to save money. Because like Scorsese was talking about how great it was for storyboarding, right? He's teamed up with some company that does storyboards, and he's like, "Oh, it's so great for the storyboarding and stuff." And but it's like that's like the cheapest part of making your film. You've got your script, right? You hand it over to a storyboard artist, and that costs a certain amount. But that's like, very inexpensive, and you get an expert eye providing you solutions that maybe you wouldn't have come up with. Whereas with generative AI, you're just getting, an amalgamated response based off of predictive data. But yeah, our students, like, they don't want it. They've made their voices heard. There was a student during my first year put together a survey and got a bunch of responses on it. And our department chair said it's not valid because it wasn't a scientific survey. Whatever that means, an opinion survey reflects the opinions of the students. But he didn't like how the questions were framed. Even though I thought they were framed pretty openly. But he says no. So he just ignored it. He doesn't think that he should pay attention to that. So, yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of fear, and the professors kind of pushing this. They aren't helping the situation. There's also like a lot of what's going on in terms of like the game market, and like there's been a ton of layoffs. Like Microsoft, they're planning on getting rid of like 3,200 people. A lot of them in game stuff over the next year. They fired a bunch of people or got rid of the studios. In fact, I saw a news report yesterday about some of the studios that spun off, and they're already firing people because they can't afford to keep everybody. They don't have the backing of Microsoft anymore, which should have been obvious. Anybody paying attention. It's good that Microsoft let them get their IP and some support for the next little while. It's actually pretty generous. I was quite shocked. Yeah, Pixar got lost a couple hundred, some big names too. But they lost more. I know they lost some last week. Um, but but one of the things that happened during the pandemic, especially, was all these things overhired, and a lot of these companies like Xbox, like their big mistake is they thought Xbox Live was going to just like grow and grow and grow till the end of time, and a lot of people anticipated that a lot of the growth they saw during the pandemic would just continue, which is just that's just irresponsible to think that. It's like you just assume that your customer base is always going to be increasing, and you don't understand how markets work, or you're lying to somebody about something. So those are all relevant issues, but it's like Pixar's put out they did really well this year. The Toy Story movie made some money. I think that movie about the beavers. I think that one did okay. I don't know. The commercials kind of look cheap to me for some reason. Maybe it's just something I'm missing. In terms of like the animation quality, like it looked like a direct to VHS film kind of situation. I don't know. Of course, I'm not. I visited Pixar, but long time ago on tour. But so one thing I don't know how to do in here is paint is sculpt with layers. I think you can sort of do it with once I get it retopologized. But yeah, they have put out a number of films over the last few years that just haven't done very well, and they're it's like I've heard the new Toy Story I heard is really really good, but I didn't like the last one. I was it felt just like felt terrible. I did not like it at all. That seemed to be kind of a universal response. I think it didn't do very well either. But a lot of their recent films just haven't hit audiences. Yeah, Hoppers. There you go. Hoppers. Um, but over the last 5-6 years or maybe even 10 years, just a lot of their films just haven't resonated with audiences. And you just can't expect people to always show up. I wish I had a better way of resonating with audiences online. I wish I understood that better myself. So. Yeah, you see that a lot of corporate merger stuff. Um, I feel like that first season of Mandalorian kind of got away with being pretty cool because I don't think anybody expected very much from it. So you definitely saw there was a change from season 1 to season 2 that wasn't quite as good. And they did not anticipate that being a success at all. Like they didn't have Disney would normally be like, oh yeah, this baby Yoda is going to be really popular. Like they would know that in advance, but they had no idea how popular that would be. They had no merchandise for it, etc. Which I thought was just really bizarre. They do now, but I think it's a little late. I'm not sure what that movie was supposed to do for them. I thought it was cool that one thing I do think it's cool that Lucasfilm has been doing is pushing practical effects. So they've been doing a lot of miniatures, and even like in their cartoon, I watched that Mall show. I forget the Shadow Lord or Shadow something or other. It was actually I was quite surprised. I thought it was pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was. wasn't like perfect, but it's like, you know, it's enjoyable. I liked it. But they actually, it's a 3D animated show, but they actually used practical effects for parts of it. So like they they had a guy build a miniature spaceship. It's one that they blow up in it, and instead of building it in 3D, when they looked at the shot, I guess they decided it would be faster and easier and cheaper to make a practical ship, to make an actual physical ship. So they got a guy to make a miniature and do the shooting at home. I guess he wasn't even there on their campus. You know, did the shots for them at home. They did some coloring of it digitally, but it was mostly practical. And then another thing it is, there's like a vision scene where Maul is having this vision, and what they did instead of doing it, so they had their 3D animated scene, and they projected that scene onto actual like fog to film it with. Okay, so you're older. That's good to know. I actually found a YouTube channel recently that's all about practical stuff, practical effects. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but so um, let's see, I'm just like overdoing these words. They need to be sharper. But so and then I think all the background, like all the matte paintings in the background, I think they're mostly done with oil paint. And they've been doing like matte paintings and all of the Star Wars stuff that with like practical stuff, you know, like stuff being painted on glass. And I know like they had that kids. It was like it's like a remake of Treasure Island, but it's Star Wars Skeleton Crew, I think is what it's called. And there's a ton of practical stuff in there, miniatures and puppets and animatronics and all that stuff. And I'm glad to see that they're doing that. I think it's part of it too is like a lot of times it is, you know, cheaper and better. And it's like at my school we've got a couple of people that worked in Hollywood like since like the 80s. And one's more like a visual effects guy. The other one he's like done storyboarding and concept, a bunch of other things. Very accomplished guys. But I was asking one of them what he thought of all of this kind of practical stuff, whether it was worth it or made a difference. He just said it's a novelty. It doesn't matter. You just do everything from the green screen and put it in the computer. I'm like, you don't think it makes a difference for like actually be on set looking at a real thing? He's like, no. So I thought that was an interesting response. Yeah, the thing, or even like in Blade Runner, you know, those city shots, um, like you don't even really notice it. Like you don't pick up on it. Like that's a you feel like it's a real place. It's pretty rare you watch a movie like from that time period where you're like, hey, wait a second, is that a matte painting? I think in like Indiana Jones, the Holy Grail, there's a scene where he's walking over the bridge. That one did look like a matte painting to me, but even you know back then on VHS. But you know, still. Um, but yeah, I think it does make a difference for you know the actors and the director because like you can get on the set and you can suddenly see what's going on. You're not. It's like even Cameron with his Avatar films, which I've only saw the first one in theater when it came out in IMAX in New York when I was living there. I had no interest in seeing any of the other ones or watching that one again. But even he's creating these trying to create these virtual environments so he can really feel like what it's like to be on the set. I can't imagine what it's like to be the actors wearing all that kind of weird camera equipment and stuff. I think that probably gets in the way more than anything. But probably save at some point, right? It's kind of funny. I work on the iPad, a bit more these days. Well, not so much lately. Mostly I've been doing traditional media lately, but one of the nice things about a lot of the iPad apps is they auto save for you all the time. I guess you can set up auto saves in Blender, but it's just it's not something to think about as much. I have to remind myself, hey, you should probably save this. I think there's a button for setting that up in Blender. I just haven't gotten around to it. Yeah, but I think the craftsmanship goes into it a lot. Um, One of the things I've been kind of advocating for is that maybe we shouldn't let our sophomores do very much digital work. That we should shift our sophomore to be like almost entirely analog or traditional media. Because I think there's studies that show that haptic experience makes a difference in terms of how our brains grow. The physical contact with real things and varieties of things, like that actually makes a difference. One of the problems you run into with the stylus, right, is this problem where the contact you have with the surface is always the same. So no matter what brush I grab here off the bottom, it's always the same feeling. It's always the same touch. And one of the things I've kind of actually said when I'm working digitally is I try to imagine what the surface feels like that I'm painting. So if I'm painting nature scene or architecture or vehicle or whatever, that when I'm trying to paint that subject, I try to imagine in my head kind of what that contact with that surface feels like when I'm painting something. Similar here, I'm trying to imagine. Trying to imagine myself pushing in with this tool, but it's still not the same as actually doing it, with the real physical thing. And I think that haptic connection. I think avoiding it and focusing almost exclusively on digital work. I'm wondering if it does done two things to the overall industry, which is what we're seeing consequences of that to some degree. It's not just this; it's a number of other things too, with management and economic and other policies. But I feel like it's again done two things. The first thing I think it does is one, because it makes the work easier, like objectively easier. It's easier to do this than to sculpt with real clay, or painting, and it's easier to do this than say use acrylics or oil or gouache or whatever. Water soluble oils, I guess. I've never used those, but but it's objectively easier to do stuff on the computer. And I'm wondering if maybe that has basically allowed, and this might include me, by the way, not accepting myself from this judgment, but I'm wondering if it's allowed people into professional arts markets who should not be there. People that lack the work ethic and the creativity, the innate talents, and the investment in developing those talents. I wonder if it's kind of letting them in when they should not be there. I mean, part of what we're seeing, like with the reduction in workforces in a lot of these companies, they overhired. It's like Microsoft acquired too many companies for bad reasons, and that's on them. But I'm wondering too, like if that's part of this problem where digital work has let people in. Oh, that's nice. And then the other side of that too is I'm wondering if maybe it underserved and undercut the development of really great artists. So like your next Sid Mead or Ralph McQuarrie, the next great visionary. What if the digital work, because it's easier, means they didn't develop their visual abilities, their abilities to express and develop and all of that? What if it didn't allow them, because it's easier, to develop to the same degree that people like Macquarie or Sid Mead or this famous Ron Cobb, um, develop partially where a lot of their greatness and their vision comes from is the fact that that they had to struggle and learn through these materials that are more challenging. That they had to become masters of these various crafts in order to achieve that level of excellence. Oh, I got my first boss video over on Twitch. Let's see. Twitch. I need to I was thinking there's a stream boot where they need to ban. So, it's funny is I'll bring these questions up in faculty meetings and people look at me like I'm a crazy person. What do you mean? Or they said they'll look at the professional field and say, well, in the professional world they're using this and they follow this process. I'm like, yes, but what if we're not serving our students well by emphasizing digital? These are kids that grow up with their iPads. Like they don't even really look into like the brush settings. I found this really interesting. I'll show them how to adjust their brushes to make them work better for them. And they're quite shocked to learn that there's all these settings that they can tweak in their brushes. They don't just have to change sizes and all of that stuff. They can go in there and they can create their own alphas and all these other things. And I wonder, because of the ease of use, like it kind of stunted even that kind of basic curiosity. Yeah, and the other thing is they can't do is they can't fix it, right? So if they have a problem, they run into with it, like it generates something and they need to just tweak it a little bit, they can't do that, right? If they need to move this there or that there or change this or that aspect of it, like they just can't, they can't do it. Yeah, or there was an incident last year where a teacher's like, "Oh wow, this student's doing really great stuff," and I looked at it and I was like, "This is all AI." I can tell where I did check it with like some of those online checkers, and I know they're not perfect, but I looked at it and I was like, "This is really like it's got that kind of AI polish where everything kind of has the same surface on it, and then there'd be like random brush strokes on top of it." I was like, "This is AI." And like, but she showed me the layers, and I'm like, "I'm sure she showed you some layers, but I'm not sure what happened with the student. I don't remember their name, but yeah, I was like, no, this is AI, and there was a grade change made, and some people were upset about it. Obviously, it was inappropriate. Yeah, I put it as cheating and plagiarism in my syllabi. Most 99% of students don't want it, and especially in their visual arts class. So I imagine a lot of them use it in their writing classes because they don't care about those. They should, but they don't care about that as much. But you know, um, youth are famous if for nothing else. Short-term thinking. Yeah, our art history professor in our department, he requires students to hand write everything. They're writing stuff in class, where they can't look things up. They have to know what they're doing. So I guess that's good. But yeah, it's a real challenge. At the same time, it's like there's all this propaganda and PR that's being thrown at people about what it does and what it's capable of, and what people believe it can do. And there's some people I've seen that I've respected for a long time that are really big into it. Like Scott Robertson. He loves AI. He's got its whole little VizCon thing. I'm not sure what his relationship to the company is, but he definitely promotes them. I'm wondering if he's like his partial ownerships or something. I haven't looked that deeply into that. How they relate. But yeah, he loves this VizCon thing. And I finally did unfollow him. He was working on this interesting project in his retirement where he was building this car, this custom car, like building the engine and the whole thing. I thought that was neat. And then James Gurney, he's all over the AI thing too, which is quite shocking as well. Um, he did some long email about, one, he thought like what universities should be doing. He's like, they need to all have servers, big server rooms, so students can do X, Y, and Z thing on the computer. It's like doesn't realize like universities don't even necessarily need to have their own servers. Like it's cheaper just to rent servers, offsite, because they keep do all the upkeep for that and maintenance. But he was also talking about how AI should be integrated into all of their stuff and in the art programs and teach them for it to be a tool. Blah blah blah. And then like not too long ago in his email, because I've been on his email list for a long time. He was commenting on he posted an interview that he did with Claude, and I've seen some friends do that kind of thing too, like they ask whatever system their opinion on something or what trends they see happening or whatever. They seem to think that they're getting an actual response from something that's thinking, which these systems don't think, they generate. As I was saying with my little image example. And it's interesting because people are like, well, you have to be expert in this area where you're doing research, so when you're using it, you can tell what's accurate and what's not. And the thing is, though, is often when you're doing research, you are not yet expert in that thing, right? If you're already expert in the thing, then what are you using, a chatbot to do research for? So, but if you go to Scott Robertson's Instagram, like pretty much anything that's in color in the last few years has been processed through his VizCon thing. Basically, what it does is it takes your drawings that you do and it applies color and texture to it. So, I don't know why you need his particular tool for that. I don't know why it would be, compared to other ones out there, why that would be advantageous to pay for their service. But there it is. So, if you go to his Instagram, anything that's in color from him in the last few years is been processed through that VizCon thing. And he's got all these great tutorials on painting and stuff that you can access through his books or on his YouTube channel now or whatever. And it's great. I have, this is something I didn't really think about until I kind of saw what they were doing. And one of the things that I've noticed with Gurney's work, I've noticed this for a long time with his work, but also Scott Robertson, Like if you look at Scott Robertson's personal work, he basically draws the same vehicle over and over and over and over again. Like they've got a similar structure, similar layout kind of system going on. Like his design language is pretty much always identical. It doesn't vary it very much. So he's got like this kind of structural layout he likes to do, and then he applies it to any kind of vehicle that he's drawing for the most part. Whether it's a bicycle or an airplane or a boat, he's got like this very particular thing that he does. And he does it over and over and over again. Like it's the same thing. It doesn't explore kind of new areas or new structures. It's always the same set. And then with Gurney, one of the things I've noticed, if you go look at his work, it's not so much in the first Danotopia book, but I definitely noticed it in the other books. I've always been less interested in his other books beyond outside of Danotopia. But there's kind of a stiff, emotionless quality to a lot of his work, where it feels very analytical. But if you look at his writings and his color and light or imaginative realism, like that's in there, right? This very analytical approach to making images, and it's very useful for studying. Like I like both his books. I have both of them signed by him. The little drawing of dinosaur on each of them. One of them got some water damage. But if you look at his work overall, like there's a certain kind of lack of expression in it. It's very kind of stiff. I think again, there's a lot of really good information in those books, but at the same time, it's like, no, there is kind of this sterile quality. It's like he's trying to make everything just right and accurate rather than going for a mood or a romantic sense or an adventurous sense. Like that's pretty rare in his work. And so, but I didn't really pay that much attention to that because I benefit a lot from both of their instructional books and the whole Design Studio Press set. All of that I think has been really helpful and good. And a lot of people that I respect have gotten caught up in this AI thing. So I'm not sure what to do about what, if anything, to do about it. Just like wait for it to pop, but it definitely says something about someone's character when they adopt it. Either how easily tricked they are by superficial effect. I've noticed it almost seems like it's like a boomer thing too. Like they're both, they're not young guys anymore. I see it a lot less from like people from my generation, the Gen Xers, to some degree, but a lot less. I think part of it too is like they're not pursuing anything professionally anymore too, to a certain degree. And so like they don't really care. And I've definitely seen like friends of mine that are like fine artists using it for reference. Like look at the oil paintings or whatever that they're doing, and like, oh, that's it's definitely AI. As a reference source, the color looks strange. It has like that mid-journey kind of color to it. And it's definitely noticeable. And I wonder why they don't notice. I'm wondering if I should hold off on the texture on this until I get this recopied. Yeah. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a professor in the university. He's like, "Well, I like it for reference," and I'm like, "It's not really reference." You know what they could use in here is like a contrast brush. Oh, you do have one. Okay, good. So if you grab the smooth brush and use control while using it, you can do the contrast thing. So shift. So you have to actually grab the actual smooth brush. Too much fun. Too much of the wrong contrast there. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of times I think they're being like really clever about it. It's just bizarre. It tells me more about someone than I would like to know. And a lot of these things were kind of like not, it was information that was not accessible to me before this became a thing. And now I know, and I don't like knowing. Yeah, it's like, why not look if there's so much real world? I mean, it's like you go on, Gumroad or ArtStation, you've got those different companies where they've got models that they've hired and they're taking photographs of them, or people going on location to actual factories or architectural places and they're taking real photographs. And it's better to try to get your own reference as much as possible, but um, but still, there's more access to more real information now than has ever been available. And so why turn to this fake thing? Why? I don't see any reason to do that. Like at the moment, like all this software is inexpensive and easy to access, like Blender or DaVinci or Affinity. At the very same moment, like all of this stuff is just like instantly available. The internet works amazingly for almost everyone around the world. You get instant communication with everybody, and suddenly, this generative AI thing pops up. Uh, it's weird. I remember there was like a Lucasfilm executive who presented this video of like AI generated creatures, and they were just like, Earth animal remixes, and they looked terrible. He's like, "This is the future of visual effects of Lucasfilm." I haven't heard from that guy in a long time, which is interesting. That was a couple years ago, I think. Well, sometimes you get tricked too, right? So you'll see a video or something like that, and maybe you didn't look at it very closely. And I hate having to look at everything so closely too. Like, you look at some artist doing like a 3D rendering, you're like, is this AI? And you're like, oh well, this person like says they don't use AI, so I guess hopefully that's true. Um, but I hate having this like constant level of quasi suspicion on everything. Because in the arts, it matters if you're the author of your work. Um, how are we doing for time? Oh, an hour. Okay, only 15 minutes. So I need to fix these eyes. I think I hit him with like one of the fabric brushes, the spheres, so that they're kind of bumpy. I need to replace those. But yeah, I don't understand. Well, I think I do understand, and I don't like what the understanding tells me about people that want to use it for a variety of different reasons. And I don't like what it says about them or their relationship to their work. But there it is. So what am I supposed to do with this information now? What does it say about you, and what what I should think of what you're doing, and all of that. Well, one of the things with generative AI is it has that kind of photographic fidelity, right? So it looks somewhat photographic, and because of that, that high kind of image fidelity, detail, texture, whatever it's in there, it makes it feel like it's believable. And that's one of the problems with it, right? So if it's just believable enough to get passed around to a lot of people, you know, it gets accepted. And I think that represents, you know, a real big problem for communicating with people and the whole, you know, the whole human project, right? Now, and I've seen like, yeah, I've seen a lot of people I've respected quite a bit that, you know, were into it, and I think it's, you know, a game changer or whatever. And the people whose work I've followed for, you know, since I was a student, who I've respected, and all that stuff, and they're just like, yeah, now I'm using AI. Yeah, well, it's not even just that. It's like the process of making something reveals something to the maker, right? So when you're sculpting something like I'm doing right here, or you know you're painting something or animating something, the process of actually making the thing is a source of inspiration and opportunity. It's not just like, you know, the making of something is not just a roadblock in your way to arriving at a result. You know, the process of making things is part of that discovery process of learning, you know, what's possible and uncovering um, potential creative solutions to whatever problems you're trying to solve. And so by trying to remove that creative process, I think it gets in the way of that discovery. I think it's actually one of the problems with digital work, so even stuff like this, is because ultimately the digital solutions to a problem, based because it's an algorithmic medium, it's always going to have a limited number of potential solutions. And I think that that's something to factor in when you're working on a project. Is you know, does the medium limit you? And so the problem with generative AI is it feels like it has the appearance, the superficial effect of being a finished product. You know, it looks complete per se, and so it's not even so much about the mistakes. Like mistakes can be mistakes, but it's about the process of actually making something where you know the potential of it gets fully revealed. You know, you'll hear about, you know, situations on set, right? You know, there's a weather condition or a health condition or something happens, you know, and that requires that they came up with a solution, and without that solution, you know, we wouldn't have the quality of the product we have now. Or, you know, like you said, you know, being in person on set with a real physical set and real props and, you know, animatronics or whatever, like all those things reveal possibilities to the people that are making it. It was funny, we had with that maxing out layer thing, we had Ian McCaig out last year, a little over a year ago, on campus. Uh, he, by the way, hates AI very much, in case you're worried about him. But he was saying that he's actually prefers to work with no layers. I was talking to him about it. He's like, so like, it was funny because I'd actually been messing around with that a lot lately. Is working with no layers, just beyond the one working, the one there. So no extra layers. And he's been getting into the iPad thing too. He has like an older iPad that he was messing with. I was kind of helping him with the tech support stuff on campus, so making sure his presentations went smoothly. But yeah, but that was something he was saying, like because it makes him feel. It also helps him feel like it's more he's working in real media. Which I thought was, and it's something I've been doing too. But one of the things you run into when you're working on layers is you try to kind of work under and behind them, and that kind of disjoint the image to a certain degree, depending on how you're working. So, like a brush stroke going behind another brush stroke can be kind of strange. And so, yeah. But my thought too at the same time is, well, why not just work all traditional then? But obviously, he's someone who's more than capable of doing that. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I didn't actually learn Photoshop until after I was out of school for myself. We focused a lot on Corel Painter, which was more popular back then. Than it is now. And so I learned that mostly. I didn't learn Photoshop until after I graduated. I've actually got my Painter 6 bucket over here. I'll pull that out. Got some stuff on top of it. But my Painter 6 bucket. Okay. So, actually, I know the guy who did the illustration here, Ryan Church. I used to work with him a long time ago. I don't know if he remembers me at all very well. But yeah, I got the bucket. I still prefer their brush engine in a lot of ways over Photoshop's, because Photoshop stuff's all based off of a stamp, right? And Corel Painter has a whole different kind of tool set in it. And that I think I still like better. So I'm feeling better about those neck folds. Not perfect yet, but I think this area here, especially down here, this I didn't pay attention to this right now. These are just too much of a gap. Maybe I just need to fill that up and then just put a little slice in it or something. Maybe I should do some fold sleeves. But yeah, Corel Painter. Yeah, it's Yeah, so yeah, it can help. It can, again, the thing with digital is just one of the things I don't like about when people try to do it digital is try to make it look traditional. I don't see any point in doing that. If digital is great, then it should have properties that make it unique and interesting, right? As opposed to other media. So I've never really understood the push to make digital look traditional. Even like with Corel Painter, like I never really tried to make it feel as if I were, using oil or gouache or whatever. Even though it's got those kinds of textured brushes and things in there. That doesn't mean anything should look like Photoshop airbrush or something, but there's definitely kind of unique things you can do on the computer that you can't really do otherwise. A flamingo, huh? It's funny. There's like this meme I saw on Twitter where it's like, have Disney animators ever looked at a flamingo? Because you'll see the beak on them, and they give them dodo beaks. So they put the thick part of the beak at the top and the thin at the bottom, which makes them look more like have a dodo face, except they're pink. Whereas with an actual flamingo, if you're doing a study of a flamingo, right, then you'll find that the lower beak is much thicker, right, much bigger, much more pronounced. But there's this little meme going around which I thought was funny. Yeah, I mean they look strange. I imagine the reason they did it is because flamingos do look weird. You know, it's like one of the things I don't like a lot, especially a lot of animation, is I don't like the anthropomorphizing of animals where they give them like the whites of the eyes, eyebrows. If they do it in all the movies where they've got animals, I feel like they should be able to get that full range of expression without making them look human, like furries. Let's see how we do there. I don't think we're about out of time. Yeah, just a couple more minutes. But who am I to say? Like Zootopia is really popular, right? Made a lot of money in Zootopia. What do I know? They were anger the furries. But that's always something that I've always loved to wonder about. This is what's his name? Heinrich Clay. I always liked his drawings of animals that Disney used as reference for Fantasia, and he didn't really anthropomorphize them. Like he'd show them doing human things, but they still remained like the animals. Which I liked more. They didn't have the whites of the eyes and all of that. They showed like alligators and crocodiles like ice skating or whatever, with elephants. And so those were better. Those big canals in the neck. Yeah, well, there are many such cases, right? Of corpo Disney, taking other people's stuff. There's was it Kimba the White Lion is like this example. I don't know if you know how accurate the assessment of that is, but that's been one that's been out there for a long time. It's like Halo 3, they came out with a map called the Narrows. I had made a map, a fan-based map, fan map in Halo CE on the PC back in 2004 called the Narrows. And what's weird about their Narrows, though, is it wasn't actually a Narrows, it was a bridge. I think of the Narrows, that's a slot canyon, which is what mine was. And but they came out with this map called the Narrows in Halo 3, and I was like, hey, wait a second. I don't know, I don't think they were paying that much attention to, if any, to me, but I just thought it was funny. And their map was entirely different than mine. I had the name first. Yeah, so if your ideas are worth stealing, it's definitely a better idea. So, today is new comic book day. I'm excited to see what comes out. I've been getting back into comics over the last year, also working on my own. This is kind of an interesting issue here. This is a new series by Robert Kirkman called Terminal. And it's basically he's throwing down the gauntlet at the X-Men and Marvel. And speaking of stealing ideas, so it's got these like superhero teams of people that get mutated. It has more to do with like cosmic reasons than born with the mutation. But he's treating it like a 90s X-Men type comic book. And so there's like a good team and a bad team kind of thing, or at least that's how they've set it up. It's probably more complicated than that. But he's also gotten like high-end X-Men artists to work on it. So this is Andy Kubert who's doing, I think, the first art for 6 issues or something. And then he's got Dave Finch doing another set of 6 issues. I think it's 6 per. Might be less than, I'm not sure the exact number per issue that they're doing. And then he's also got Art Adams doing it. So you've got like these 3 incredible artists that should be doing X-Men comics, right? Or Batman or whatever. And he's got them doing this new original series. So the first issue came out last week. They actually did a blind bag thing, and I've never bought one, so I bought one, and it just gave me the exact same issue I already just bought in the same cover. But called Terminal. There's a reason for the name, apparently. There's actually a ton of stuff going on in comics at the moment that are really good. So that's been exciting to see. But it's almost nothing out of Marvel is ever good at the moment. So yeah. Anyway, looking forward to checking that out. But I think we've reached my hour-and-a-half limit. Let me double check that. Yep, 1 hour 34 minutes. So like with my study projects like this, I like to limit the time. So I could spend all day, working on this or finish it, by the end of the day. But I like to, for study projects like this, I like to limit my time so I can get back to other things. Like I'm working on my own little comic, right? So here's a big spread. Doom trailer. I don't know. The Marvel MCU stuff has gotten a lot less interesting. I think the Spider-Man movie's going to do well because people like Spider-Man. Like my mom loves Spider-Man. I made her take me to the very first Tobey Maguire one. It came out on my birthday, of all things. So I was like, "What do you want for your birthday?" I'm like, "I want to go see this movie." I'm this guy in my mid-20s. I want to go see a Spider-Man movie. So I made my sister and my mom go with me to see it, and they loved it. they love Spider-Man. So, um, but for the Doomsday stuff, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's a lot of people in a movie. It seems like it's a really long movie. I think Doom could be an interesting character. I don't get why they felt the need to make him Robert Downey Jr. I'm sure they've got an in-universe reason that's really great or somewhat makes sense. But I just feel like that's still, like, why? Um, and I know the story they're going for, which is where Doom creates this Secret Wars, this battle world situation where he remakes the universe in his image to get his wife and child back. And that's what so they'll have the Doomsday movie, then they'll do Secret Wars after that. And yeah, so like I don't really care. Like a lot of the Marvel stuff since really Endgame hasn't been of any particular interest to me. I did watch what was the name of that show? The one about the actors. That was pretty funny. Miracle Man or something like that. I forget the name of it. It was funny, but it was only sort of superhero related. But I thought it was well done. And then what else did I see that was Marvel related? Oh, Moon Knight. That was pretty good. You know, obviously like TV show quality, but I thought it was enjoyable. I thought that was good. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like Miracle Man was funny. I just don't know, you know, how well it would really fit in, sort of. Um, then, but I thought it was good. You know, it's like with Andor. I thought Andor is really good. It's also not Star Wars. Like it's clearly the guy wanted to make a movie about insurgent forces, and Star Wars is just like a wrapper on top of it. Yeah, the guy's a great actor. Right? He's got a lot of personality. You definitely choose the scenery, as they say, right? But I really like Andor, but again, I just don't. It wasn't Star Wars, and it wasn't just because the lack of the Jedi or whatever. It was like it didn't have that Star Wars feeling. Or I thought the Maul show actually did, and I don't like any really of the prequel stuff. I don't really like at all. You hated it. Wow, that's the first person. You're the first person I've ever heard say they hated it. I thought it was good, but I just didn't think it was Star Wars. Like I think Skeleton Crew was more Star Warsy, and even though I thought it was a little too on the nose with Treasure Island stuff, like people wearing pirate hats and things like that. I didn't realize it was like a Treasure Island remake until when they met the robot and his name was SN33, Smeed. I was like, oh, this is just Treasure Island. So I just thought it was a little on the nose, a lot of the pirate stuff in there, in terms of how they looked. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, what's funny is I watch, I watched Rogue One immediately after finishing Andor. It's like Rogue One is a really weak movie when you compare it to Andor. Like, it has a lot of story problems in Rogue One. It's like the better of the newer movies, but it's actually still not very good. Well, one of the things that they do with a lot of the Star Wars stuff that I don't like is like try to make everything connected. Which Lucas started that back with the prequels especially, where like Darth Vader was the one that made C-3PO. And R2-D2 was his personal droid. And it's like, did not like that at all. There's a lot of things not to like, but that was like one of the things. He also, I think, got the whole chosen one thing going that's been like a thing in media for a while with his Anakin thing being the chosen one. And like if you go back watch the original series, like Luke Skywalker really wasn't the chosen one. He was like the only option. Yeah, he came out being pro AI recently too. The thing is, like like one of the things that you get with the original series is the original trilogy before he bastardized them in the specialized versions. So I guess they're going to be re-releasing the actual theatrical versions. I think over the next year or so. So we finally be able to get those legitimately. I don't know how well they'll be able to color correct them or whatever, but yeah, he did come out and say like it's like why would you use a horse when you could use a car? But one of the things that made his original movies so good is that he did have the seed of a good idea, but it took the collaboration of all the people working on it to actually make it into what it was. And if you had handed George Lucas, AI in 1976, before the movie came out, when he was in production, like he would have just made an absolute dumpster fire out of it. Like it would have been terrible. I mean, he already was kind of a mess before, his wife who edited it and all that stuff. And it's not that he's not an imaginative person or he didn't come up with this amazing idea for a universe, but it wasn't it didn't emerge from his head in a perfectly fully fleshed out version. It was the product of all of these people coordinating and presenting ideas and those ideas working or not working. The editing process, again, for the films made a big difference for their quality. And we kind of see what happens, though, when he got total control over everything, what he did with them. And, as much as I, respect that legacy that he had, there's definitely throws a lot of that into question to a certain, to a certain degree, not to an absolute, but to a certain degree. And I want everything to be awesome. Like, I want all the movies to be great that are coming out. I want all that to be great. But then, they'll put this out, and I'm like, why? What? How? Yeah, you can actually get the Lucas version, like the version of Star Wars that's based off of his original screenplay. There's a graphic novel for it. I've got the digital one from Comixology a long time ago. There's a thing that went south after they got bought by Amazon. But I have that, and it's terrible. It's kind of a mix of the original series and the prequels, and it's just not good. it's I thought it would be really interesting to read, and it's just really terrible and boring and uninteresting and flat and bland. Yeah, well, there's a good reason why they didn't make any more Indiana Jones movies, right, for a long time, is they didn't have any good ideas, and it turned out they still didn't have any good ideas. I didn't watch The Dial of Destiny. I know it was like a whole time travel thing. I did see that fourth one a long time ago, the one that came out, the one with the aliens, Crystal Skull, I think it's called. That was terrible. Like, it just wasn't good. It felt like a parody of a Indiana Jones film to me, rather than an actual film. Well, it's like after I saw it, I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and that was terrible. And so I was like, I don't need to see any more Indiana Jones. After that, you know. So yeah. Anyway, I need to stop. Get on to my other things. So I appreciate coming in. I'll be back in the morning tomorrow for sure. And we'll talk to everybody then. Go watch a bad movie, right?